Hi there, welcome to the Chirp YouTube channel. I am Christy, your friendly online speech language pathologist and specialist in children's communication development, including behavior. And behavior is what this particular series is about. We are talking about how to prevent and then deal with challenging behavior. The deal with only, of course, if all of our prevention strategies do not work completely to eliminate a behavior. The way that we're thinking about this particular issue in this series is by using the pyramid model. Here is the pyramid. We already talked about supportive environments. In the next portion of this series, we are going to talk about nurturing and responsive relationships, which is the very first portion of the teal part of the pyramid. Take another peek, just make sure you see what I'm talking about. It's very important. It's not actually that important. You will get the same amount out of this video, even if you don't see the pyramid. But the pyramid's so cute, and it's very helpful for thinking about how we can structure our preventative strategies, and when we need them, how we can structure our direct therapeutic responses. When we're thinking about nurturing and responsive relationships, I think the first thing we need to think about is our own selves and our level of upsetness. I realize that's not a word, but it is very upsetting sometimes to work with children, even typically developing children, and sometimes our kids make us feel crazy. And we need to have our own resources, our own methods and strategies for working with ourselves. Because if I am not calm, I cannot calmly respond to the child in my life who is even less calm than I am. I can't teach a child how to manage herself if I am not managing myself well. I realize this is super challenging because I've worked with kids for over 20 years as a speech pathologist, and I have been really frustrated by kids lots of times. One of the things that makes it easier for me is a sense of disconnect from the child, because I am not the parent. I am not responsible for the child overall. I am responsible for this chunk of time. I'm responsible for these hours in the classroom, or I'm responsible for this hour of direct therapy. But I don't go home with this child, try to feed her dinner when she doesn't like to eat anything, try to give her a bath when she hates the water, and try to put her to bed when she doesn't want to sleep. It's never ending to raise a child, whether you are a biological parent, a foster parent, an adoptive parent, a grandparent, an auntie or an uncle, whoever you are in a child's life. The more your responsibility, the more likely you are to get to that boiling point. So I'm going to offer you a few resources today that may help you manage yourself so that you can better respond to the child or children in your life who need good models and good help as they're learning to manage themselves. The first thing I'm going to say is please get professional help. If you have a lot of rage, a lot of grief, a lot of anger that comes bubbling up, notice these things as warning signs. Get some professional assistance. There are online therapists available. There are free groups that can help you as well if you have no money and no insurance. The church that I attend does free lay counseling for people, and I know that there are a lot of churches that do that. So check out lay counseling in your area through churches. Even if you don't attend a church, a lot of churches will help you anyway. So get people involved if you've got friends, and hopefully you do, but sometimes as a grown-up it's hard to find friends who are real. But be real with your friends. Be authentic about what's going on in your life and how hard it is for you right now to be a parent. If your friends are true friends, they're not going to judge you. They're going to love you through it. Okay, these are very hard things that I'm mentioning in a kind of way as if they are simple, but they are not simple. but they are the right thing to do. The next thing I'm going to suggest is sleep. I know it's hard to sleep when you have a kid, but what I tend to do when I'm stressed out is stay up really late because I just like the quiet of nighttime. And that's not the best way to deal with stress. So if you would like to take a lesson from me, don't do that. If you can, when your child sleeps, think about wrapping your own day up as well. The next thing I'm going to suggest is exercise, because exercise burns off negative emotions and it enables us to easier feel our positive emotions. If you can run, run. If you can run on a treadmill while your child is playing right next to you, then it's a win for everyone. If you can walk with your child, or your child is riding her bicycle and you're running, if you can push your child in the swings, I find that exercise where I can just zone out is the best for managing my emotions. I do a lot better when I just can look ahead and just go, especially if it's outside. It's not always possible. I live in a state of extreme weather. I live in Minnesota. I almost said Arizona. Oh my goodness. We lived in Arizona for 27 years and just moved back to Minnesota, where we both grew up, my husband and I, a year and a half ago. So I'm still getting used to saying I live in Minnesota. But it is a state of extreme temperatures. It gets to above 100 in the summer, degrees Fahrenheit, and it gets down to negative 20 or 30 below in the winter. There are some times on either end, because of heat, cold, or humidity, where I am not going to be outside. But exercise helps, and so does nature. So if at all possible, get your little tushy outside and enjoy some beauty. If you have to, take your child with you, but if you can take turns with a spouse or a friend, if you can co-parent along with another dad and you get your time outside in nature and then the other dude gets his time outside in nature while you're watching the kids, that's a great benefit for everyone, including the kids, of course, because you will be a better parent if you expel some of your frustration. The next thing I'm going to say is eat well. Again, not super easy to do when you're dealing with all of these kid-related frustrations, but do the best that you can. It doesn't take a huge amount of time to open some beans and fry up some veggies or microwave them and make a taco. That's pretty easy. It does take a little bit of practice to figure out the best way to do it and the most efficient way. Usually I cook once a week or twice a week a great big meal and eat leftovers for dinner, and then I have the same thing every day for lunch or the other way around. And for breakfast, then that makes it easy for me so that I don't have to constantly be thinking about food. But I know there are some people out there who just can't manage leftovers for some reason. I think they're awesome because they're like takeout. It's food someone else made. Hooray! The next thing I'm going to recommend, I have a few book resources here for you. The first one I'm going to recommend is called Conscious Discipline. Now, with discipline, we're not talking punishment. These are two separate concepts. Punishment is getting back at a kid for doing something you don't like. Discipline is shaping a child's behavior so that it's more appropriate. But one thing I like is, I will put this up on the screen over there so that you can see it. Look over there. But this is talking about the steps in dealing wisely with an emotional issue, with something that's making you mad. And in this video, I'm kind of assuming that it's your child making you mad. You are really frustrated with one of your child's behaviors and it is throwing you into a state of dysregulation. We all get there sometimes, and as we practice dealing appropriately with our own dysregulation, we can stay more calm. We can have more of an equilibrium rather than rising and falling and kind of being an irregular, wavy line. We can instead be calm seas. And that is what we kind of need to be if we're going to be the best example for our kids who don't have the self-control that we have. They don't have the ability to recognize their own emotions and then deal with their emotions in a wise way. A lot of adults don't have this ability either, which is why I'm making this video, because a lot of us don't even think about it. We just get mad and that's what we are, and we act out of that angry state. What I'm proposing is that there's another way to do this, and this other way is, step one, to realize that I've been triggered by something and I'm feeling emotions. That's reasonable. Step two is I can work on calming myself. So I notice, for me, I start clenching my jaw and I start scowling and my voice gets real scary. If I'm talking to a kid, I might say, "Stop that now." That's my scary voice, and that wasn't even as scary as it can be. When I start using my scary voice, I realize that I'm on a path that I don't want to be on. Okay, that is step two. Step three, I pause and I label the feeling that I'm having. I was having an unreasonable expectation of myself in that moment. I was assuming that other people were judging me, which they probably were, because it happens, but maybe not. And anyway, their concern is not my business. My business is dealing well with what I've been given, which was this little girl at the time. So I could label that. I'm feeling judged and criticized, even though they're not saying anything, and I'm feeling unprofessional. And that makes me feel bad and angry, and I'm blaming that child that I'm feeling this way. That's step three. Step four is I get to choose. I get to choose what I do with that feeling. And what I'm going to choose is instead to say, this is not this child's fault. I'm going to keep doing what I know is reasonable, which is they're not my business. Those people I think are judging me. I'm going to deal with this child with patience and compassion, just like it's my job to do. Patience and compassion. This child is out of control. I know how that feels. I was a child once, and even as an adult, I have to work really hard through these steps to try to figure out what I'm feeling and how is the best way to deal with it. And I still have trouble. So imagine how it would be to be 3 years old, to not have any of these tools or experience, and to be trying to deal with tough emotions. I can tell myself all of this, then I can go back to this little girl and do step 5, which is solve. I choose how to solve the issue that is in front of me. If the child's out of control, I'm going to work my behavior plan, which I will have created before. I have a behavior plan. And if you don't have a behavior plan, we're going to talk about that in this series. So I suggest that you subscribe. And if you want to know exactly when I post a video, ding that little bell, because then you will be given a push notification. I don't turn those on for very many people, but these are important issues we're discussing, so it might be a good idea. Also, give me a like if you feel like it. No pressure. Those are the steps that are listed in this book, and they teach you these steps not only so that you can use these for yourself, and they talk about regulating our own emotions before we teach other people to do it. So they're teaching you how to regulate your own emotions, and then you can pass on your new skills to your child or your children. The next thing I'm going to suggest is a workbook called The Incredible 5-Point Scale. And this is kind of another way you can see. At a 1, we are calm. At a 2, we're fine. Not super happy and relaxed, floppy and out of focus a little. At 3, we're starting to get a little tense and unhappy. At 4, we are losing it. we're losing it. We're getting, the eruption is coming. And 5 is eruption in progress. It's bad. What this book does is it talks you through, I like this. This is an anxiety curve. And it describes, for this particular person, what each number would be. So a 1 is feeling good, a 2 is tense, a 3 is mouthy. So maybe this is where you get sassy with your kid and you say mean things. Number 4 is where you're swearing, or maybe you're acting a little aggressive. And number 5 is explosive. That's where the shouting happens, or maybe you punch a wall or something. I'm hoping not, but I know it happens. So this can be used to assess yourself. And then the best thing is, this chart is a good example of a problem-solving chart. And this is what we would do in step 5, solve the problem. We're choosing, and then we act out of what we chose. Choosing is step 4, and then step 5 is acting out of what we chose. This has, if I'm a 1, here's how, here's what it looks or sounds like when I feel a 1. Here's what it feels like, and here's what I can do. And then it goes all the way up to, usually we start intervening when we get to about a 3, because that's where we notice we're getting out of control. So this says when I'm 3, I'm just going to make something up for myself. When I'm feeling a 3, that's where my jaw is getting clenched. That's where I'm feeling impatient and unloving with the child. I'm having trouble liking that child or feeling like I want to interact with that child. My plan when I'm a 3 is to take a break. Take a break. Usually I will go to the bathroom, go get a drink, do something else, organize a closet for a minute, or put toys away, something like that. And while I'm doing that, this is my plan, not yours, but maybe it will inspire some creative brainstorming. While I'm doing that, I'm telling myself, this is not the child. Yes, the child's behavior is inappropriate. That's what I'm here to work on. It's fine for me to have a break. I can choose to be compassionate here. And maybe I might need somebody else to work with this child for a little while. And that is also totally fine. Obviously, you can't really do that if you're alone with a child in your house, but this would be a good time to call a friend, if your child is safe without you right there watching him, then take a long bathroom break. Listen to some happy music in your bathroom, lock the door so that he can't get in. Have coping strategies in place. Write yourself the chart. There's a DVD in the back of this workbook so that you can pull up the charts and enter your own information in. I recommend either writing out this chart by hand or printing it out and putting it where you're likely to see it all the time, so that you can begin to look for the signs of getting out of control early, so that you don't get to a 4 or a 5. You can stop it at a 3. Usually a break of 3 to 5 minutes is all we really need to be able to regulate ourselves again, because we're adults. We've been working at this most of our lives. But that doesn't mean that sometimes we need something else. And I can't tell you what that's going to be or what's possible in your particular life circumstance. But please think this through in advance, because it's going to save you pain in the long run if you can identify your dysregulation early and intervene. The next thing I'm going to recommend is 101 Mindful Ways to Build Resilience. Most people don't choose to have an hour of meditation in the morning to help their minds remain calm, to help their mental seas become peaceful. I do not choose to meditate for an hour every morning. But this book has 1 to 5 minute exercises for helping our minds to be calmer. From anger to heaven in 1 minute. Find a quiet place where you can take 3 long, deep breaths. With each out-breath, visualize your breath carrying the anger down your legs and depositing it out the bottom of your feet. These are very practical solutions to help us regulate our emotions, which I think all of us, adults included, need more of. Once you find some of these that work really well for you, put those in your plan. Put them in your problem-solving plan. When I get to a 3, that's the exercise I'm going to do. I know it takes 1 minute to do this visualization exercise, and then I'm going to be a better parent for my child, a better spouse, a better friend. I'm just going to be better because I'm not going to be operating out of a place of dysregulation. I'm going to be operating out of that sense of calm that is deep within me. I'm also going to offer one more book. If you really like a thick and hefty book, this one really changed my life and it changed my view on what emotions are. I don't deal with my emotions very well. I don't tend to necessarily know what emotion it is that I'm feeling, and I don't usually have a great plan. That's why these resources are so helpful for me, because they're very logical and they help me to notice what's going on in my own head better. I'm not naturally great at that. And I know that most people my age and older weren't really taught much about our social emotional skills and how to manage our emotions and how to work through them. We were just taught to stuff it and get on with life. And sometimes we have to get on with life, but we should not be stuffing our emotions. We should be dealing with them in reasonable ways as we continue on through life. This one talks through the different emotions, like anger, for example. Here is how anger feels in your body. Here is what anger is telling you. That's why it's called the language of emotions, because our emotions are communicating something to us. They are another sense. They're like sight or touch. They're telling us information about what's going on in the world, and usually we try to ignore it. If I'm angry, it's usually because someone has violated a boundary. Whether it's a real boundary or one that I made up in my head, someone has violated it. And that usually is why a person is angry. So she talks through how to mentally reinforce our boundaries, how to visualize different emotions, and how we can sort of calm them down when we need to move out of a particular emotion. It's really fascinating, and I hope that it helps you as much as it helped me. Now, I realize that this video seems a little tangential to the issue of preventing challenging behavior in our children, but it's not, because in order to prevent our children's challenging behavior, we also have to prevent our own challenging behavior. And responding out of dysregulation is challenging behavior. Whatever behavior comes out, if I am crazy and dysregulated, it's not going to be reasonable, calm behavior that my child needs in order to feel safe and to be able to respond out of their best self. It's a very challenging issue, and we're all learning together. I hope this video gave you lots of stuff to think about. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. See you soon.